Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Good. It's glad to have everybody here today. We have as much air as we come in here. Paul's done a great job trying to keep us cool, and we have some new news about the new AC units coming up soon. We have been in a series kind of called Dealing with Feeling, and I'm not a big feeler, so I think for me it's more like dealing with the emotions of everything, because that is pretty much what I struggle with. Emotions that go from one extreme all the way to another extreme in a matter of seconds. Has anybody ever tried called Verizon and getting anything done on Verizon or any phone service? I'm on my third company now for phone service because I think the other ones have already blocked me, or I'm afraid they're going to call the police on me, because that's after you get calling me, try to get anything done, your own phone tree from, ATL. It's really, really bad. It's really bad. And you spend forever on it. And your emotions go from one extreme all the way to another extreme like that. I was reading this one and just show you how things can change so quickly. I love news, and I love kind of going to and reading, watching YouTube videos and stuff like this on this one. This was a funny one at first. Big gender reveal. They invite their entire family to come watch this gender reveal. Hey, I'm going to have a boy, I'm going to have a girl, and they're really excited. And they put a ball on those things, almost like a piñata ball, and a guy takes it, and if he hits the ball, what's inside of it's going to show up, be pink or blue, and he swings and he hits it, and it goes blue, and he follows through and hits his wife right in the face with the bat. Excitement. Ow. Change like that. Another one was this one. And this one's kind of tragic, actually, really tragic. They were doing a pyrotechnic show, and they set up to have kind of explode, and it's in California. It explodes, and it's a boy, it's a girl, and they're all excited and everything. It created one of the largest forest fires that California has ever had. Burned down homes, forests, killed 25 people. A moment of joy and excitement to a moment of just destruction. And that is what emotions and these feelings that are stirring inside of us, that's what they start to do. So when we're dealing with the emotions, it creates this inner turmoil within us that's one's going to win. The joy and the happy, or the destruction is going to come out very quickly. And so what we're trying to figure out is how to say no to the emotions that compete for our control. They compete for the control of what's inside of us. And we see this extreme because many of us have let things slip out of our mouths that have caused great destruction to your home. They've hurt people's lives of those around you. And it just like that, it was boom, boom, boom. You say things like this: I didn't mean to say that. It was an accident. I didn't mean to do that. It was an accident. I'm not sure where that came from. And these are phrases that many of us use when we're talking and when we're dealing with these emotions, especially the ones that have slipped out of our mouths, that we've done to other people, when we've given into our anger, given into our bitterness, and these things have just flown out of us. And we're like, where did that come from? And we want to blame it on this thing. We want to say, it was an accident. But let's say, okay, let's go. I'm going to go out and get in my car. I'm going to drive into all of your people's cars. It was an accident. Do you care that it was an accident? No. The damage is done, and you're going to hope that I'm going to be ready to fix every single car that I hit. And that is the reality, how we have to start looking at our emotions. We are going to hit people, cars, we're going to hit them with our words, and we have to be in a position, are we willing and able to fix it? So that is what we've been talking about. How do we learn how to control these emotions, these feelings that are going on inside of us, so that we have fewer of these accidents and more peace? And we're going to talk more about that as we get going. So the Bible says us very carefully and clearly where these things are coming from. And this is out of the book of Mark 7 says this. This is from where it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Now, I want to stop there real quick. Notice it says evil thoughts, but then look at this list that we're about to read. It says evil thoughts. They come from the heart. They come from the things that we kind of let into our lives. They come from that area of us. And it's just thoughts. But it's just weird. Look at this big long list of words we get into. Sexual morality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evil come from inside and defile a person. thoughts. It started with thoughts coming from our hearts. And so kind of like that gender reveal, when something from within gets revealed to everybody, oh, it's a boy, it's a girl, we're all excited. From within each one of us, when these things start slipping out, it's revealing what's truly going on in our hearts and what's going on in our minds. And so you might say it's a feeling reveal. It's an emotions reveal. And just as bad as that one, where it burns down an entire forest and people's homes and people died, we have to understand within us is the potential, unfortunately, to do the same to our own families, our friends, our workplaces, our schools, our classmates, our teachers, our spouses. We have that same ability to destroy like that, and it's coming from within. It's revealing what's happening from within us. It's no accident. It's no accident. Now, I'm going to get to share one today specifically, one that I probably struggle with, and I think if we were all honest, we most all struggle with. And if we were all honest, it's probably led you to moments in your life where you have said and done things you regret later. And I'm going to share probably one of mine. This is kind of a confessional here for you guys. So I have this issue, and sometimes when I hear about bad things happening to other people, I'm happy about it. Anyone else? Anyone else have those moments? Somebody fails, I'm the only bad one. Okay, I see how it is. Me in the front row, we're the only bad people in the room. You've never heard somebody fail and you've gone, they deserve that. Okay, I got another hand. One more hand out here. All the rest of you guys are saints. I'll go in the back. Okay, thank you. But that's kind of the reality. There are moments, and I don't know where it comes from. It's horrible. When I hear somebody else fail, somebody else make a mistake, and I'm like, finally, they got what they deserved. Or, maybe I can take what their business over. Ooh, maybe that means more for me. And those are the evil thoughts that go through my mind. And it comes back to this one word, and this word is envy. You see, when the envy kind of takes over my life, in those moments when I feel envy is sneaking in, this jealousy goes, good, they got what they got. I'm actually kind of happy about that. Now there's more for me. That's envy sneaking inside. When you hear some politician that's on the opposite side of your party and they do something stupid, you're like, good, got him. When you hear your competitor make a mistake, you're like, good, now that's great. That's not right. That's not it. Especially when it comes to people you actually know. Like when your brother-in-law or sister-in-law, something they fail at their job, they get fired from a job, and you're like, oh, good. I don't hear about that at Thanksgiving again, do I? See? That's that envy. Am I connecting here? That's envy sneaking in and bearing its ugly head in your life. It's being revealed in that. And this is something we all struggle with. And yours might not be as bad as mine. I'm sorry, I'm confessing. Hopefully my soul will be released from this. But there's just this envy that just builds within us. And we have envy of all kinds of things. And it starts from birth. From birth. When you're a little baby, somebody has a toy you want. What do? You give me that toy. And you yank it out of their hand, or you cry and throw a fit. Then you go to school, and it's like, somebody brings in the cookies, and they drop the cookies on the table, and you're like, and what do they always say when you bring cookies to the classroom? Did you bring enough for everyone? Right. Isn't that great? And then you get a little bit older, and then it's like, ooh, look at the shoes they're wearing. Get a little bit older. Oh, your kids are so smart. And you run by, oh, what am I? You're comparing your kids. You're comparing everything. You compare your clothes. First day of school for a kid's horrible. You walk in, you go, man, I hope I picked the right trend this year. Yeah. You don't know until you're there, and you got to walk around all day, and whatever the dumb stuff you might have picked out, you don't know, I don't do it. For me, when I remember those when I was younger, it was always the shoes. Yeah. And we were not real wealthy, and so all the cool kids had leather shoes. We had pleather shoes. That's plastic that looks like leather. That's what we had, pleather. And I'd have to walk in and try covering up, so like this, trying not to see my shoes. You get a little bit older, then it's the wedding ring. Oh, look at the wedding ring my boy got me, my husband got me. Look at the wedding ring. Then, look at the house that we have. And look at the house that's awesome, our house. Look at my 401k. All these things are just creating envy within us. Then as you get older, I see what happens. You have a spine that doesn't hurt. That makes me jealous. I'm envious of that. And I don't know what happens the next day. Maybe it's, hey, I want that walker has bigger wheels than mine. This got new fresh tennis balls on it. I don't know. But envy basically just gets all of us from within inside, and it just builds and builds and builds. We've been kind of battling a little bit. I feel like our house is, we have a decent house. I think our house, we've worked hard to get our house until we take Samantha, my daughter, to visit her friends for this choir parties. And we go up to these houses, and they have like pool houses and mile-long driveways to get to them. And they get wedding barns in the back of their backyard. And I go, wow, man, I'm a failure. How can I live in this little shack I have, you know? And that's what starts happening. We're comparing ourselves constantly. My wife, Jen, tells a story that when she was 16, she worked really hard to get a car. And she got a Geo Metro, which is like one step above a go-kart. 2 people can move it. Really, you can. You can lift it and move it over and put it in a parking space. Her best friend, she had to help pay for that. She had to pay for that. Her best friend got a brand new car. And she tells the stories when she remembers when she pulled up in that brand new car, her thoughts weren't very good. It made her angry. It made envious inside, and it was building and building and building. Okay, I've set our stage here for what we're dealing with, okay? And now we're getting to King Solomon. King Solomon writes a very straightforward and very direct way to start dealing with this, but he has to describe it first, and this is what he says. He goes, envy rots the bones. It just rots the bones from the inside out. It rots us from the inside out. It leaves us competing against people who don't even know there's a competition. Many of us spend our lives competing against people. They don't even know the competition's happening, but you do, and you're competing against them. It starts getting into your relationships. It makes you dissatisfied with just about everything you've had. Envy is not a problem that you can solve easily. Matter of fact, sometimes it's not really one that we solve. It's one that we basically kind of have to figure out. It's a tension that we have to start to manage. We can't just say, stop being envious. Because you might get over this one, but something else the next day you drive down and you see that guy's new car, and you're just like, I want that car so bad. I'll work hard enough to get that car, even if it costs me my family. Now, you don't say that in your mind, but that's really when you make that decision to start being envious about certain items and objects and things, you basically are saying that thing to your family. You're saying that thing to the people around you because it takes control. It becomes your boss. Envy starts to win out. So envy is not a problem that we solve. It's a tension that we start to manage. And as we start to kind of get into this, there's a balancing act mentally and emotionally that we have to start fighting when we're dealing with envy. You see, these things, they're always there. That tension is always there. But something comes along and creates a little bit of an imbalance in your life. Maybe the same time you walk in to work, you're dealing with loneliness at home. And that person at the work, it just shows you all that attention, and you're like, wow, that's what I really need right there. And you find yourself being envious of their relationship, or you start finding yourself getting connected to that person outside of your marriage, outside of your relationships. It's this imbalance. There's something else emotionally or something happens in your life that kicks you into an imbalance, and now these emotions are swinging back and forth, and you go, how do I reel them in? How do I bring them back under control? And so we have this tension that is never going to go away, really. But we have a God who overcomes it. But it's a choice to decide to follow him and through the midst of that. This is another one from King Solomon. This is another thing he says here. Listen to this. I saw that all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another. This too is meaningless. Think about that. 3,000 years ago, this was written. We think it's just now in the Facebook age or the Instagram age. All the way back to his day, people were just fighting and trying to impress somebody else, trying to do one up someone else, trying to get something more than someone else. And it's what drove them. And here's King Solomon, who had it all. Great wisdom, the wisest. And he basically says, it's meaningless. Let me finish, go to the next verse here. God finishes. He goes, and I saw the toil and the achievement spring from one person's envy of another. This too is meaningless. A chasing after the wind. A chasing after the wind. And that is going to be our phrase for the day. A chasing after the wind. When we find ourselves starting to get sucked into envy and out of imbalance, when we listen to King Solomon, he goes, This is meaningless. Basically, almost saying this is ridiculous. That people are just living their lives, going back and forth, trying to attain something that's meaningless. Because, let's be honest. If you get something new, the next week somebody will do something newer. If somebody gets a nice house, someone else is going to get a nicer house. It's the ers. Newer, cleaner, bigger, better, prettier, smarter. There's always going to be something else that you want. You might think, I got it now. And then, bam, sure enough, the new model comes out. And we find ourselves chasing this. It's a chasing after the wind. When you're chasing the wind, think about what chasing the wind would look like. Here's what we're going to do. All of us are going to go out into the parking lot and chase wind. Come on, let's go. Everybody, we're going to go chase wind. People driving by, drive faster. The Christians are going crazy today. Drive a little faster. We would look ridiculous. But yet that's what many of us do when it comes to this part of our lives. We're chasing after things that are unattainable. We're chasing out of things that there's no end to the chasing. There's nothing to show in the end of your work to say, look what I got. I got wind. And many of us, we look just as foolish as us. We went out and ran in the parking lot. Your friends and your family, they watch you chase after things that are meaningless. I'm guilty of it beyond belief. There's moments I find myself chasing after things that are purely meaningless. And my friends see it. They go, he's nuts. Or he's off. He's out of balance. There's something going on. This needs to be fixed. But this is the reality of where many of us live. Envy is basically rotting you to the core. But we want to focus on this chasing after the wind because that's going to be kind of our mentality and our thought process to kind of start getting ourselves, when we find ourselves becoming envious, that we're going to bring that phrase up and say, it's a chasing after the wind. Because if you're chasing after the wind, I can guarantee, we're here it is, dissatisfaction is guaranteed. 100%. If you're being controlled and led by envy, you're guaranteed to be dissatisfied with their things. Guaranteed. So let's look at this. You have to make a decision that chasing the wind is something you're not going to do. So we look at this. That's chasing the wind. I don't chase the wind. And that's kind of the phrase. I don't chase the wind. That's going to be kind of the first thing. So we're building on this mentality. I don't chase the wind. I might get sucked in a few minutes, but I don't chase the wind. It's meaningless. It's ridiculous. And we find ourselves drawn into that. Now, there are some people who take this, and Solomon basically wants to make sure that he brings very clear on something. Some of you, some of us, we stop doing anything because we don't feel we can ever achieve anything. And so you quit. Samantha was telling me about one of her friends who was in a choir. And because of her fears of not comparing well to the other girls in her grade and the singing ability, she didn't even really try out for the upper choirs. And so she made it really kind of like the intro choir. Well, then she goes to the intro choir and she starts singing, and she's phenomenal. She's talented. She has the ability. And the teacher basically tells her, had you tried out, you would have probably been in a varsity choir. Had you tried up, you would have at least been in the next choir up. Had you tried out. And Solomon basically says, this is not an excuse just to give up. This is not an excuse to say, I'm not even going to try, because that's what our laziness kind of starts sneaking in. That giving up part of it starts sneaking in. So we're not saying that we shouldn't do anything, but we're saying we don't go crazy. We don't try stressing out over things we can't attain. We don't try stressing out over people we don't compete against people who don't know what's happening, but we also don't give up. He says this like this. He goes, fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. If you just fold your hands and you do nothing, you're missing out on what could have been, how God could have used you. So these are things. So this isn't about giving up. We're not out of the race. We're not out of the chase. We just make sure we're chasing the right things. We want to make sure we're chasing the things of value. In this one realm, here, let me show this next passage. Maybe this will answer it for you. Here's what we're going for. Better one handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Translation is this: sometimes it's better to have a little less and be content than to have a lot that's meaningless and worthless and chasing after the wind again. So some of us, can you take a little less, but actually have tranquility, peace, satisfaction? Less is more when it leads to contentment. Less is more when it leads to contentment. I've kind of experienced a little bit of this last year. I kind of prayed because I've been struggling with balance between work and family and just the things that all of us deal with. You know, I want to provide for my family, but I'm really trying to do it because I'm providing, or am I just want more money? Am I providing for these people? Am I meeting my kids' needs? My kids are at that crucial age, 12 and 15. You want to be there. And so I was kind of praying, God, help me find balance. And I found it this year. My business is not doing as well as it was in the years past. The economy changes. It just happens. And I have to readjust my contentment with what I have. And to be honest, I'm happier this year. I spend a lot more times with my kids, a lot more time with my family. I haven't been quite as stressed as I have. I worry about money, but I have to kind of check it. We have plenty. We have enough. We're good. We're not going to starve. And it's just that continually battling. And so you got to sometimes be careful what you pray for, because God will answer it. And so that's kind of what I've experienced. And I'm grateful for it now. Are you chasing after things that don't matter? Solomon kind of goes on and starts sharing a little bit more, and he gets a little bit more touchy. He starts sharing a story. Here, I'll share my personal story. So I have a friend that I was good friends with. His name's Derek. And Derek's my friend he's a year younger than me. Derek's been married briefly, you might say. Derek's been hiking in the Grand Canyon. Derek climbs a different mountain peak almost every weekend. Derek lived on a yacht, on a boat in California for years and years. He lived the coolest life you could ever think of. He went to Costa Rica and basically worked with sloths. For 2 or 3 months, he just hung out and worked with sloths and tropical animals at a nature preserve in Costa Rica. He works on computers so he can do it from anywhere in the world. And he just travels, and I'm just like, man, I'm so jealous. He'd call me, hey, you want to go to the Grand Canyon? No, I can't go this weekend. I got to work. And he's just doing all this cool stuff. Envy. I couldn't watch his Facebook page. It'd make me sick. He's someplace that I wanted to be, someplace I wanted to go. Met with Derek about 3 weeks ago. Derek had a brief marriage. Didn't go well. Derek battles depression. Derek battles a lot of stuff. What I was envious of was a Facebook page. Just a show. Not that he meant to do it, but that's just what I took from it. I was competing against him. He didn't even know we were competing. And now that I see what he got, I don't want it. And that's how we do. That's that tension that we all live in. And so Solomon tells about a man, and let's hear about this man here. He goes, again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. The importance of that is he had nowhere to leave his money. Women couldn't inherit anything. And so if you have no son and no brothers to take your money, you're basically working for no one. And he goes on, he goes this, there was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. He wasn't a poor man, he was actually a rich man. But he kept working and working and working and working. And this is the question the biggest question of the day, and if I could just walk off the stage now, I would. It says this, for whom am I toiling? For whom am I toiling? And this is the question that we all have to answer. Who am I working my tail off for? Is what I'm doing really for the right reason? Who am I doing for? Some of us in this room, you're still working to impress your parents and you're 50. You're still trying to make mom and dad proud. Some of us are trying to impress parents who are already passed away. And they still in our minds, we're like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to be something. I'm going to be what they did. I'm going to achieve more. Some of us are trying to impress our competitors. And like I said, they don't even know you're competing. You're nobody to them. And you're wasting your world, your life, to be a race that they're not even in. Some of you, we struggle with saying this, for whom am I toiling? I'm toiling for my family, of course. I want my family to have the best. I want my kids to not look stupid when they walk into school. I want to take them on the best vacations. Is that really why? Is that really why you're doing it? Is there a moment or a time where maybe your kids woke up and they said, Dad, you need to go out and sell 3 more houses so you can get a better looking car? Is it really what your family's telling you to do? Probably not. I think this falls a lot of us men. We feel like we have that role and we do a lot of stuff saying, at the sacrifice of our family, we do that. What's really of importance? For whom am I toiling? Some of you work really hard trying to put on a good show on Facebook and Instagram and all these other things. Who are you trying to impress? Some of you guys go on really cool vacations, and I look at your vacation pictures and I think, man, my family is a loser. We're losers compared to your family. We went to the same place you did, but you had so much more fun than we did. And it just rots us from within. My challenge would be this. Answer the question, because without answering that question, you're chasing the wind. It's going to drive you crazy. So it goes and says this, for whom am I toiling, and why am I depriving myself enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business to be in. The true enjoyment, the next thing you might get, the next item you might buy, that thing you think is going to make you happy. I was also reading, anybody play the lottery this last week? That's all right, I won't call you a sinner in church right now. I did. Okay, I bought 2 tickets. It's a good thing I went through Illinois last week. I bought my ticket in Illinois. I haven't really looked at the numbers. Did anybody win? Yeah, one person in Illinois won that one? No, I should probably go check that then. That's not, didn't win. So, but it was cool to think about, wasn't it? All the things you would do if you won that $1 billion. What would I do with all that? It's great to think. I'm reading this article they put in the Fox News yesterday. It said this. It goes, 70% of lottery winners are broke within 7 years. One guy, I had an article, I had a story about the guy, basically, he was already a wealthy man, won like $330 million. And within the 6 or 7 years afterwards, his family split up. He lost a daughter. His family, it just went to crumbles. And he basically died. And basically before he died, and when he was dealing with some of the death of some of his family, just all this calamity, he couldn't trust anybody, all this stuff, he goes, I wish I would have torn it up. So the thing that we think, that'd make everything so much better, it's not going to change it. You still have to deal with it. It's meaningless. What do you do with it? So just kind of bring that in. What are you toiling for? How about this one? You'll never experience God's purpose for your life while distracted by God's purpose for somebody else. If you're more concerned about what other people have than what God has already given you, you're going to chase the wind. Here's the answer. Solomon, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. That's our tension. A life at peace, of meaning, things that are meaningful. You just can't continue to chase the wind. Here's another that goes, maybe start helping you change your mind a little bit, to get your mind in the right spot. Here it says, you can't win chasing the wind. Look to others for inspiration, not imitation. When you're around somebody, do they build you up? Do they inspire you to say, hey, if they can do it with what they've been given, God can use me to do things also. That's inspiration. You read their story and you go, that is amazing how God worked in their life. God can do the same through me. I want to be like that. That's inspiration. If you find yourself getting into imitating people, you got to turn it off. And that'd be my challenge. If you're caught up in this social media garbage, delete it. Remove it. If it's creating more discontent in your life than it's bringing contentment, get rid of it. I don't know what it might be for you. But if it's creating that discontent where I'm not worthy, I'm a loser, my family's a loser, we are poor, we're broke, we're nothings, and you don't realize what you've been given, get rid of it. Because that kind of leads to the next one. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. That's Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules of Life. What we're looking for is progress in our lives. How is God growing you? How is God using you? How are you progressing through your spiritual life? How are you growing in your servanthood to other people? How are you growing in how you love and treat other people? Progress. Am I a better person today? Has God grown me today compared to how I was yesterday? Not compared to someone else, because you always lose in that one. How about this one? Count your blessings, not your neighbors. Gratefulness. Are you grateful? Are you grateful for what you have instead of worrying about what they have? Most of the lots of things to be grateful for. Okay, so here's our phrase for the day. This is going to be our turning phrase. This is it. When tempted to compare, stop and declare, envy, you are not the boss of me. I will not chase the wind. Okay? Let's just say the last part. I will not chase the wind. Come on, you guys do it. I will not chase the wind. Because that is what we have to break ourselves out of and get. When that starts, envy starts pouring in, we have to kind of say, you're not going to be the boss of me. I will not chase the wind today. And when it starts sneaking in, you start looking at that person's shoes, or like their car, their cool guns they get all the time, Paul. I will not chase the wind. I will not chase the wind. The reason we can do this is this. We already have a boss. We as Christians, we already have a boss. And he does not like the competition. As Christians, we have a boss. We have a boss who says, I'm in control. I love you. I will take care of you. Who I made you to be is exactly what I wanted. The gifts and talents I've provided for you and I've blessed you with, it's exactly what I need to accomplish another thing in my life, in the kingdom of God. I need that. Don't try being them, because that's not you. I already gave them their gifts. I gave you these, and I want to see you use what I gave you to do it. Now, sometimes it's not as glamorous as somebody else's, and that's just a reality of life. But God gave you a purpose and something gifts to use to achieve his goals. Because here's where the final kind of things comes down to. Don't compare yourself to one another. Love one another. Don't compare yourself to one another, but love one another. I am supposed to be your biggest cheerleader. I shouldn't be thrilled when you fail. That is wrong. Wrong. But I should be thrilled in helping you, encourage you to be more who God wants you to be. If we could pull it off as a church, we would be growing, not because we're going to be a big, huge church, but because people would sense something. They would want to imitate you. If you become the person that God has called you to be, and you're living an inspired, God-driven life, other people are going to be drawn to you because you're going to be their inspiration. And that is what we're called to do. Wherever you may be. You might think, all I am is I just a student, I don't do anything. You are called to be an inspiration to other people, to inspire them to go deeper in their life, to learn about God. Can you do that at your work this week? Some of you guys have tough jobs to do this, and I'm like a reserve sheriff deputy, so I hang out with a lot of police officers. It's hard to try to share your faith with them. Sure. There's a bit of a wall. But then there's some guys that I watch, and I watch them, that I know they're Christians, and I watch how they live around those other guys, and I'm inspired. Yeah. I'm like, if they can live that out around these tough guys, I can do it in my home. I can do it at school. I can do it wherever I'm at. Because here's the final thing I'm going to say to you guys. We're going to be done. If you do what is meaningless for too long, your life and your accomplishments become meaningless. That hurts. That hurts. But that is the reality. For whom are you toiling this week? Really? Are you ready to kick this to the curb and no longer live a life that's meaningless? Because if you live there long enough, you're going to be at the end of the day chasing the wind. Nothing to show for it. You're going to look ridiculous. You're going to feel ridiculous. You'll be dissatisfied. That is not what God called you to do. So I'm just going to end with that little tension there. It's a healthy tension. For whom are you toiling? Think of the areas of your life where you're chasing after the wind.